was the summer of 1997 when it happened, at a camp deep in the Catskills, tucked between dense forests, narrow dirt roads, and the kind of silence that felt somehow louder than noise. I was 16 then, a junior counselor at Camp Briarwood, and I still don't talk about it much. Most of the others won't either. Not because we made some pact, not exactly, just some things are better left in the dark. Camp Briarwood was old, probably older than any of us realized. The cabins were weather-worn and slouched, their green-painted wood peeling like sunburned skin. The surrounding forest was thick and overgrown, where moss coated the trees and coal streams carved through black soil. Something about the woods always seemed too still. Birds chirped during the day, sure, but past dusk, everything went quiet, like the forest itself was holding its breath. The girl's name was Lila Harper, 11 years old, smart, quiet, with long black hair that curled at the tips like the ends of burned paper. She carried a little notebook everywhere she went and had a way of staring at people like she was seeing something you couldn't, something behind you or beneath the surface. But she wasn't strange, not really, just observant, sensitive. It happened on the 4th day of camp during a morning hike for the younger kids. I wasn't with that group. My cabin had kitchen duty, but I remember seeing her that morning, sitting on the wooden steps of cabin birch with her notebook in her lap, drawing something she quickly closed when she saw me looking. The hike was supposed to be short, a mile loop along Ridgeway Trail, something the kids could handle. They left around 10 a.m. with 2 counselors, Dennis and Melissa, both in their mid-20s, both hired only a few weeks prior. By noon, they came back down the hill, missing 1 child. Lila was gone. There was chaos, of course, screaming, crying, radios crackling with panicked voices. The director, Mr. Adley, ran up and down the trail with a whistle clenched in his fist so tightly it left marks. The official story was that Lila had wandered off during a rest stop and fallen behind. But I remember Melissa's face when she returned, white and pinched like a sheet pulled too tight over something lumpy. Dennis said little. He just stood by the trailhead, arms crossed, jaw locked, eyes scanning the woods like he expected something to come crawling out. We searched for 3 days. At first, there were organized teams, walkie-talkies, search grids, but it didn't take long for people to grow reluctant. The forest felt wrong. There were stories, of course, campfire legends that counselors used to scare each other, witches, old hermits, cults in the woods. But this felt different. I remember finding Lila's notebook near the creek bed, its pages damp and smeared, but the ink still visible. She'd drawn the same image again and again. A tall figure in the trees, always the same posture, long arms, head tilted unnaturally, no face. Each drawing was darker than the last. They questioned Dennis and Melissa naturally. They were the last to see her. Melissa broke down crying during the first interview, said she'd turned her back for just a moment. Dennis was calm, too calm. He said she probably wandered off chasing a rabbit or something, but she wasn't that kind of kid. The police did what they could. Dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging cameras. They didn't find bones, clothes, or blood, just silence. The trail was closed. Parents were told it was an accident. Camp continued, though heavily subdued. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. At night, the woods pressed against the windows like a presence. You'd hear footsteps on the pine needles, branches breaking softly, too rhythmic to be animals. One night, I swear I saw a light bobbing between the trees. not a flashlight, something dimmer, flickering. I started waking up at 3:17 a.m. every night. No sound, no reason. Just this heavy sense of being stared at. I'd lie there, eyes wide in the dark, sure that if I moved, if I even blinked, I'd see something standing beside my bed. Then more things began to happen. Mia, one of the senior counselors, began sleepwalking. We'd find her in the early morning, barefoot and shivering, standing at the tree line, eyes wide open but unfocused. She'd never remember how she got there. One of the younger kids, Sammy, refused to sleep in his cabin after the third night, said he heard scratching beneath his bed. When we looked, we found nothing, but the wooden slats had long, deep gouges in them, too large for any animal in the area. Dennis quit suddenly before the second week ended, packed his things in the middle of the night, and left a note that simply said, "I'm not staying here." We never saw him again. Melissa stuck around longer, but something in her broke. She started keeping all the cabin lights on all night, even though we weren't supposed to. She stopped eating. Once I found her sitting alone in the arts and crafts building, staring at the corner of the room like it was speaking to her. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. She left at the end of the season and never returned. Years passed, and Camp Briarwood eventually shut down. They cited lack of funding, but everyone knew the real reason. The land felt poisoned, like something had sunk into the roots and wouldn't leave. Last year, I got curious and returned, just for the afternoon, just to see it again. The cabins were still there, sagging and green with mold. Nature was taking back the space inch by inch. I walked the Ridgeway Trail alone, the one Lila vanished on. The air felt heavy, unnatural. At the spot near the creek bed, I found something. A new notebook, dry, clean, even though there'd been a week of rain. It was lying flat on a rock, like someone had placed it there. Inside were childish drawings, some familiar. The same tall figure, long arms, head tilted sideways. But this time, another figure had been added. A girl, small, standing beside it. And next to that, in careful, blocky letters, "I never left." I turned to look behind me. Just trees. But I swear, in that awful, impossible silence, I heard the faint clicking of a pen.